Welcome back, everybody. John Hendricks alongside Ross Jackson here for another episode of Second and Saints. Ross, we've got a lot more energy than that Paul Tyson fight that went on Saturday or on Friday. Golly,
I don't know. I might be the Tyson in this equation. I don't know how much. I don't know if I got my legs under me right now, but it'll be good. We'll bring more. We'll bring more.
Yeah, man, that was such a letdown.
That was so disappointing, man.
Oh my gosh! And I love Mike Tyson. Like, I thought he was going to win.
Too.
I thought he was going to win, and huge Mike Tyson fan. Like, obviously I went through that era, Mike Tyson's Punch Out, all that fun stuff. But that fight was such a letdown. Like, the women's card was so much better.
Oh,
like,
that was
a heck of a fight.
Incredible.
And she got robbed too. So
yeah, she did. She did. Serrano should have won that. Yes. I thought that the Barrios and Ramos fight right before that, I thought they were good too. I thought everybody outperformed the main card. But I guess that's why they called the Taylor and Serrano fight is probably why they called that one the co-main event, because they knew what they were getting.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, obviously you guys aren't here to talk about that, but it was a big event, and all this hype that just didn't end up happening, kind of like the Saints season this year. Just so there's a correlation here, but look, they're building off of momentum, right? Like, getting into the Saints. The Browns are coming to town. They're fresh off a bye week. They're 2-7. I wouldn't say they're in the same boat as New Orleans, but like, they're obviously not doing well. And anybody thought that they'd be in this boat. And Jameis Winston comes to town. There's not really much of a revenge factor now that Dennis Allen's out of the equation, I guess you could say. But still, this is about, can the Saints build off the momentum and keep the energy from Darren Rizzi from week 1 to now week 2 and stack another win on the season?
Yeah, that's got to be the biggest thing now is, I love the way you said that, from going from week 1 into week 2. It really is a whole new season for them. I think Darren Rizzi talked about that as well, to where they kind of saw after the head coaching change, they were like, all right, 0-0. Here's an opportunity to go 1-0. They did that last week. Now, can they carry that forward? We got to remember that this is still a team that is without major pieces when it comes to both sides of the football. No Chris Olave, no Rashid Shaheed at wide receiver. Both their top 2 corners are gone. One done for the season. The other one traded to Washington. This is not the same New Orleans Saints team that it was early on. But I'll tell you what, I think that they kind of draw the Cleveland Browns card kind of at the right time here. This is a pretty good opportunity to see yourself matched up against a non-division, non-conference opponent that's kind of in the same situation as you. Get an idea of where you really are as a football team.
Yeah, and this is part of the 17th game formula, right? So they do the rotation. So this is why you're playing the Browns, because they have the AFC West this year and such. And so it's part of this voodoo formula. They'll go back to the AFC South next year. It's supposed to be a road game, but at any rate, so it's, the first time they played Cleveland at home since 2018. Obviously, they played them just a couple of years ago in that snowy game and such up there. And they ended up pulling out a pretty impressive win. Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara powered through them. But, again, this is about, can Darren Rizzi and get this team's energy where it needs to be. I think that when you look at the offensive side of the ball, obviously you mentioned not having a lot of targeted receivers like Olave and Shaheed. And this is a spot where, we saw the Saturday transactions, Kevin Austin Jr., Dante Pettis gets called up again. Jermaine Jackson got waived. So that'll be interesting to see who ends up returning kicks this week and fielding punts. Might be Pettis and then somebody else. I don't know if it's Jordan Mims.
Pettis and Mims, maybe.
Mims, but it's still interesting that, that would be the move that they make. Obviously, the spotlight's on Marquez Valdez-Scantling again. Eric McCoy returns. That's a huge return for this team. But this game plan, again, kind of like what we talked about previously, 4, 41, and 7. That's kind of the 3 main cogs in this wheel, and everybody else is important. But those are your 3 main driving forces here for getting a win over the Browns.
Yeah, and look now, this week. I think you can throw 78 in there. I think he makes a huge difference for this team. You know what I mean? I don't know that he, turns them into a winning team all by himself, but man, there's conversation to be had if Eric McCoy comes back and this team performs much better on the ground, protects much better because of its pre-snap recognition, runs the screen game better by getting downfield, climbing to the second level in the outside zone game. If all of a sudden all those things start happening, like there's legit conversation of, is Eric McCoy the Saints non-quarterback MVP? I mean, I think you have to give that to Alvin Kamara, but I think that there's legit conversation around Eric McCoy at that point. But I think he sets everything up. If his protection is there and he helps this offensive line, you saw Darren Rizzi bring an injury. McCoy can bring energy. He can bring energy too. Sorry, I don't want to do that. That's bad mojo right there. What I just said by accident.
It's okay.
Bringing energy. I think Eric McCoy brings that too. You get him cooking in the run game, get the rest of the offensive line cooking in the run game, sets everything up for you to be able to take advantage of what I think is the biggest advantage in this game, which is Derek Carr under play action.
Yeah, and look, of course, it's the low hanging fruit is to pick Alvin and other guys, but again, we've said this offense doesn't work without the offensive line, and case in point, when they lost McCoy, a lot of that went to the wayside. I know that, they had Shane Lemieux come in for a game, and then it was the Connor McGovern after Lucas Patrick. And so it was just like this shuffle of everything. But when they have a full strength at an offensive line, I mean, you're presumably the only person you're not going to have is Lucas Patrick with the ankle injury, but Nick Saldiveri getting another start. I think he's done a lot better this back half so far than he did in the first half. And so I think their offensive line is about as good as it's going to get until Patrick comes back. And even when he comes back, I don't know if he's definitely going to be the starter because of the ankle injury being tricky, but you got to go with a hot hand. The Saints didn't allow the sack on Derek Carr last week, and now they're going to be tested, obviously, against the Browns defense. What challenges does a Cleveland defense bring to the table? Because you saw what they were able to do kind of against Baltimore, but then against the Chargers, it was kind of like, I mean, some of that was turnovers from Jameis, but their defense is a mainstay here for them.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say probably the biggest challenge that you're going to get is the pressure that they can bring. That's where this all comes down to. And it's a great time to get Eric McCoy back to help to sort of be the stalwart of that offensive line, help kind of spearhead that offensive line, because like the offensive line has performed better over the course of the last 2 weeks, but their opponents, the Carolina Panthers and the Atlanta Falcons, are 31 and 32 respectively when it comes to pressure rate generated by the defense. They're two of the worst pass rushers in the NFL. So yes, the Saints offensive line performed better, but then it brings us back to the age-old training camp question. Is the offense good or is the defense bad? And I think in these cases over the course of the past 2 weeks, the pass rush has been bad. Now you go to Cleveland or Cleveland comes to town with the number 3 ranked quarterback pressure defense, right? In terms of generating pressures at the quarterback. Myles Garrett, of course, is the big name there, but they can do it all over that defensive line. So I think that's got to be the big thing where this all starts, is you got to be able to protect well with that improving in health offensive line. You got to be able to run the football too, to make that defensive line respect the run game. And then you can start to build off of that with Derek Carr.
Yeah, and you pointed out last week that I can't remember the exact stat, but you had put what Derek Carr was against the blitz last week and against the Falcons.
Oh, yeah.
It was like 8 of 12, 100. I forget how many yards it was, but
169 and a touchdown, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, he does pretty well against the blitz. I expect them to bring some different packages and pressure packages and stuff. And again, this formula seems pretty straightforward, right? Like ground and pound a little bit. Put Jordan Mims in there a little to mix it up, maybe some Taysom Hill, lean on, what weapons you do have in the offensive passing game. This would be a great week to see Mason Tipton get involved, or see Kevin Austin Jr. being able to stack on another performance, or Foster Moreau, Juwan Johnson. There's ways to be able to obviously move the football. I think playing at home obviously is a good thing for them too. This is their second of 3 straight here. They'll have the bye week following this one, but I think I say that to say it's a little bit more comfortable now that they can play again under Rizzi, which, by the way, he's undefeated when he goes to a Pelicans game. I know that's huge, and I know everybody cares about that. So,
yeah,
right. So that little we're in that honeymoon phase, I guess, if you will. And so again, offensively, giving Clint Kubiak an opportunity, giving this offense a chance I think we saw that even though they didn't make the 4th down call last week, or
right.
putting the game on them in on 3rd down and 4 to try to end the game there, the aggressive style. Is it just a byproduct of the confidence for Clint Kubiak, or is it just kind of, well, we just see how the game flow and then we'll just open her up after that?
Yeah, I think he's a game flow guy and kind of feels things out and makes adjustments based upon that. I think where he has struggled to make adjustments, and this was true of him over in Minnesota as well, is that when the primary approach doesn't work, do you have a second punch, and can you sequence these things appropriately? And so the primary approach here is going to be the run game. And it's been the story of the season so far that when the run game doesn't work, the offense kind of goes by the wayside as well. And you saw that a little bit last week, except you got the play down the field to Alvin Kamara. I know it was a drop, but you had the right call. You had the right thing. Even the play right before that, the run by Taysom Hill that turned into a 4-yard run on 2nd and 8. If Taliesin Fuanga gets his hands on Nate Landman, the middle linebacker, and Landman's not able to crawl over the top and then get into that hole, Taysom Hill's gone. Gone. There was nobody there. And so both of those were the right calls that were just one man away. And so I think that you're seeing Clint Kubiak maybe improve a little bit in terms of situational, here's, I got this up the sleeve, kind of stuff. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he's able to kind of bring out here up against Cleveland, and to be able to maybe take advantage of Cleveland's aggression a little bit. Heavy man coverage team. Heavy blitzing team, number 4 in the NFL in blitz percentage, according to Pro Football Reference. And so that's where things like screen passes and play action and all that kind of stuff really kind of, those things are a benefit because you want to take advantage of the aggression. I think, John, in this one, we saw the aggression from Darren Rizzi and the team last week. I think you have to keep that aggression going this week.
I mean, Waterboy can't hold anything back, right?
That's the point.
Like, you gotta play these games to win. Herman Edwards. Herm Edwards. Obviously, you play to win the game. But I like it because you look at last Sunday, Atlanta scores, and then what do? You come out slinging. You throw a big old bomb to Valdez-Scantling and set yourself up inside the 5. Like, that's the type of stuff that I would expect to see more of from this team. Is the fact that look, you can't. There's no room for error. You can't leave it out there, right? Like, you got to go win these games. And of course, long way to go. Nobody's saying they're going to go finish 10-7 or 9-8 or anything like that. But again, it makes for an interesting case if they can get past the Browns, and then you play the Rams, and then, see where things kind of go. And you got the Giants right behind them. So hypothetically, you could win another 3 games here in a row, but they obviously got to play these games. A lot hinges on, like I said, 4, that offensive line. Can you make it out without any more injuries? Because knock on wood, cross your fingers, toes, all the other thing, burn the candles. Like, this is probably the healthiest they've been in a long time for this team. And so again, offensively, do they have enough punch to maybe even go that deep? I guess is the question I have.
Yeah, I don't know. It's got to be about the scheme, and it's got to be about the players that they have in the building right now playing above expectation. Like, that's what it is that you're going to be looking at. You need these guys to outperform effectively. And if they can do that, then sure. And we've seen that from teams already this season. You look at the Houston Texans wide receiver core, even before they added Stephon Diggs, those are a bunch of guys that people weren't really feeling. And then Nico Collins comes out here, leads the NFL up in receiving yards up until his injury. He's back this week. How big is that going to be for CJ Stroud and all that? Like, I think that, like, you can look around the NFL and find those offenses that do have the ability to outperform even without their stars. You look at Tampa in that conversation too. Liam Cohen, their offensive coordinator, had that offense moving even without Chris Godwin and Mike Evans at wide receiver. So it's got to come down to the coaching. Your defense is still really healthy, which is good. And then the offensive side, you got to just kind of outperform. And that's something we haven't seen the Saints be able to do. We haven't been able to elevate talent pretty well over the course of these next couple of years, but maybe now they're in position to do that with the sort of, nothing to lose kind of mentality that they have at this time.
Right. And look, I think the way the offense can go, it's probably a 20 points, maybe a race to 20 points might win this game. You know what I mean? Offensively. And they did the things last week that, were needed. And I'd like to see them get a better start in the first quarter, but they had a pretty good start up into the second quarter. You know what I mean? Getting a 10-0 lead over Atlanta, kind of playing out how we thought it would play out, or at least, I was saying it at least on the show last week. And again, I think that's kind of their friend is get a lead. I was, again, ride that Superdome crowd a little bit because I feel like they're going to be there tomorrow and show up for the Saints. And, I look forward to seeing how they're able to help incorporate and get some energy. And obviously, we're going to talk about the defense, and we'll do that right after this break, sir. Hey folks, John Hendricks here, Second and Saints. Wanted to talk to you quickly about Underdog because it is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. With over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. Compete against other players by just selecting higher or lower on 2 or more player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog. This season, Underdog is going to be running a special promo or bonus almost every single day, like profit boosts, discounts, or free picks. Plus, all new users get a free pick. You could win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on player stats like passing yards, interceptions, touchdowns, and much more. Create entries with all football selections or mix and match across your favorite sports. Underdog puts the power to cash out in your hands. Now you can either keep riding with your entry or tap the Win Now button to cash out whenever you want. And with Underdog Rescues, you can get your money back and receive a promo if an early injury causes your entry to lose. With Underdog's Double Flex option, you can even take 2 L's and still have your entry to be a win. So go download the app today and use code SECONDSAINTS to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's code SECONDSAINTS. Now here comes the legal jargon. Must be 18 or older, 19 and older in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 and older in Colorado for some games, 21 and older in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Back here on Second and Saints with Ross Jackson. I'm John Hendricks. One thing I do want to say about Underdog, I know we don't have it in Louisiana, but if you are in California and Texas, where we do have a bunch of representation there, that's where you definitely can use that code. So definitely go check that out, guys. Ross, before we broke, we were obviously talking about the offense, but we're starting to segue into the defense here. And of course, we know what's the storyline, right? Jameis Winston comes to the Superdome. He's playing the Saints, very well respected. I expect the Saints fans to give him a good rousing roar and a little bit of approval here, if you will. But, Jameis Winston leading the Browns here, had a great first game. Second game, he was sacked 6 times, threw 3 picks against that Chargers defense. And, between him and Nick Chubb, kind of a similar story. Their hopes are on Winston, Chubb, and Cedric Tillman's obviously a good bid of emergent receiver. Kind of a similar formula. What do you see from the Browns offense and what kind of challenges they pose to the Saints?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for them is going to be the run game. And then if Jameis Winston catches fire, right? Like you never know which Jameis Winston you're going to get, but the better that run game is, the better version of Jameis you're going to have, because he's going to have time. He's going to be able to read the defense. He's going to be able to move through progressions, and he's going to be able to have the time to allow the big plays downfield to open up. So expect a lot of deep shots from Jameis. The Saints have to be ready for that over the top. I thought Tyron played really well over the top last week up against Atlanta. Struggled a little bit down when he was playing closer to the line of scrimmage, but man, when he was over the top and able to read some of those things, like what he knew about Kirk Cousins is like, it's going to be the dump, it's going to be the check down, or it's going to be the dig route. So I'm going to be ready for the dig route. He's got all those things ready when it comes to Jameis as well. Like Tyron is a certified film grinder, you know what I mean? And so he's going to have all that ready. But I think the biggest thing in this one, John, comes down to minimizing the threat of Jameis Winston by not allowing Nick Chubb to get going, which is going to be tough because the Saints run defense has not made a lot of progress. They gave up 181 rushing yards last week. They were better before contact. They were better in terms of yards before contact, which is good than they have been in a recent past. But I think that's got to be the big thing that you're looking for is can they slow down that run game and then therefore put Jameis Winston in some of those more uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, they both averaged 5 yards a pop plus last week. And so they can't do that. And look, Nick Chubb hasn't had the return and the impact like he did last year. But, again, it's only a matter of time before he does get that breakout. And Saints, when you looked at it last week, 7 big plays of 20 yards or more allowed to the Falcons defense, but one of those was a run. That was the touchdown run of Bijan Robinson. So again, you don't want to let Nick Chubb get hot. Going to be interesting because Pete Werner has a club on his hand right now.
Right.
He's questionable. That would be a tremendous loss for this defense. I know Willie Gay Jr.'s kind of got a little bit more juice to him now, but that's something to keep an eye on. They should get hopefully Kool-Aid McKinstry back in the mix now, because he's trending in the right direction. So that's good for him to start presumably against opposite Alontae Taylor. Interesting to see though, if that's the plan, or, if they still like Shamar John Charles still there, or, then just roll in Ugo Amadi. Plan is kind of up for grabs, I guess, if you will. But I still think with Winston kind of following the same thing that the Chargers were able to do. Can you do the pass rush? You got 3 sacks last week on Cousins. 2 of them were big ones because it was a strip sack, one from Peyton Turner, one from Chase Young, and the one from Young really kind of helped seal the game. But you can find success here. And you pointed this out last week, and we talked about it. A lot more of a simplified Joe Woods attack defense, which made things look better.
Yeah. They focused a lot more on sort of, winning your one-on-one matchups than the scheming, stunting, twisting, and stuff like that, running games with line of scrimmage. They still ran games. There were still stunts and twists, all those other things. You're going to have that no matter what. But they simplified the process a lot and put it in the hands of the players, their best pass rushers, to go out there and make plays. And you saw that from Chase Young, right? You talk about a number 2, like top 3 overall selection in the NFL draft in 2020. That's a guy that you expect to be able to show up at big moments. He showed up at a big moment, being able to do that. I thought that you saw great things from, Cam Jordan looked really good all throughout that game. I don't know how often he's going to be able to play 40 snaps or be asked to play 40 snaps, but they like what he's bringing. Peyton Turner played a really good game all around. Up against Atlanta. And look, he went out, he got checked out at some point, but then went back out there, finished the game, and wasn't on the injury report this week. He's good to go this week and everything. So, you're seeing some progress from him in terms of being able to not only make plays on the field, but stay on the field. I think all of that's imperative for this team. And so simplifying that run plan and focusing on little things like, where's your hand placement? How are you using your leverage? Where are your run fits? How are you attacking your run gaps? How are you, getting off these blocks with violence? Like, focused on all that. I thought Brian Young, who is now working with the defensive line instead of Todd Grantham, who was moved over to a defensive advisory role under Joe Woods, defensive coordinator. I thought that what he brought to this team clearly had an impact last week up against Atlanta.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's unquestioned. As long as we keep Peyton Turner away from Darren Rizzi, like that just
no more celebrating for Peyton around Rizzi. He's got to go celebrate with the other guys.
Yeah.
But can I say something real quick to that?
Yeah, go for it.
That real quick. So Derek Carr throws a touchdown to Marquez Valdez-Scantling, right? They all celebrate, but then they go back to their coach and they celebrate with their coach.
Mm-hmm.
John Ridgeway III blocks the field goal. They don't even celebrate on the field. They run immediately to Darren Rizzi. They celebrate on the sideline with their coach. The game is over. Everyone gathers around Darren Rizzi and is celebrating around the coach to the point to where they almost took Darren Rizzi out. Like, let's just be real. How cool is that, right? Like, that is such a change, such a shift in the culture. We mentioned Darren Rizzi at the Pelicans game, who's at the Pelicans game with Alvin Kamara on Friday night and all that. So I want to acknowledge that, like, very, very different kind of feel around the relationship between the roster and the head coach right now. And hopefully that relationship continues to carry forward. A lot of that could be said like, oh, well, it was his first ever win as a head coach. Of course, they're going to celebrate with him. I get that. Now I'm curious to see if that continues. Like, is he still that guy? And John, I think he's still going to be that guy, whether it's week 1 or week 100 as a head coach. I think he's absolutely that dude.
Yeah, well, they're buying what he's selling, right? Like, he's being himself. He's not trying to portray himself as something he's not. Like, he knows what it is. Like, he comes from the tree. He knows how to have fun, but he's also the type of coach that's like, you mess up, you're going to hear about it, and I don't care who you are. Like, I mean, that's just how he is, and there's a respect factor. Every player you talk to, the respect between Darren Rizzi and the players is just unparalleled. And again, hey, folks, John Hendricks here, Second and Saints. Wanted to talk to you quickly. Man, I hit my space bar, and look, we weren't trying to go to a break, but shut up, John. Thank God this isn't live.
That was awesome.
Anyways, the thing I was trying to make was just the fact that, not trying to compare the past regime and stuff as much, but it just is a different dynamic. And you look at the way this team has responded. If I'm Mickey Loomis, if I'm Gail Benson, I'm looking at this dynamic and this culture of what Darren Rizzi's establishing. And if Rizz isn't the guy, again, he's got a long ways to go. This is the type of person that you need in your building. You don't need a yes man. You don't need somebody as smart as DA was and stuff, but you need somebody who's going to lead these guys, be in the trenches with these guys like a Dan Campbell, a D'Amico Ryans, all these guys who have earned the respect of their players, and they don't leave anything out on the field. It's just my 2 pennies.
No, I completely agree. Like, you're getting a good glimpse at what it is that you haven't had. And I think there's a lot of value to that, for the organization that's having to make that point. Are there any players that I have like a couple players this weekend that I'm watching over the defensive side that I'm really curious to kind of see how they perform to follow up last week's performance, if that makes sense. Is there anybody that stands out to you in that conversation?
I think there's two. Like, I mean, I think we're probably thinking the same two. It's Will Harris for me and Ugo Amadi. I think those two were big. And of course, I think Cam Jordan can be roped into it. Tyron, I give you an underrated would probably be Jordan Howden. I don't think he's just somebody that obviously has not seen a ton of snaps, but they use him as the extra defensive back and stuff. And I think he's somebody who, they use him all over the place and when he needs, but Harris is probably the top one for me. Assuming Pete Warner's not in there, is that Anthony Orgy this week or is that Willie Gay Jr.? I don't know, but
Sewell getting into some action.
He's coming back. Yeah, I think he's is assuming he plays on it tomorrow, which that seemed like
no guarantee there.
On Friday. We'll see how that kind of plays out, but that'd be a big boost to the special teams unit for sure. But I think Harris, the way his impact came in, again, we talked about him last week, is the quietest, most chill dude in the locker room, but he plays like a ferocious tiger out there on defense, and just like something about him, like he's just complete polar opposite of the guy we see on the field and the guy in the locker room. It's cool. I like players like that.
Yeah, same. I love guys that just kind of like can flip a switch and then go out there and do it. Like Sean Taylor was like that too, and everything, like just super chill, super calm off the field, but absolute wrecking ball. Troy Polamalu, another one. A lot of safeties. Were those dudes for sure. A guy that I'm really curious about this week too, for a different reason, is Alontae Taylor. Alontae, I don't think didn't have the performance that he wanted to have up against Atlanta. And look, I think that there's the big 33-yard catch to Darnell Mooney that set them up on the goal line situation where the defense took them 4 downs down to try to punch that one in. So kudos to the defense for extending that as much as they could. But it was another play, much like the Ladd McConkey catch and run up against the Chargers, where he was actually in good position, but just wasn't able to make the play, better throw, better catch, and all those other things. And so I'm really curious to see what Alontae looks like this week, because he's taking this opportunity to heart. Like, this means a lot to him that he's getting the opportunity to go out there and prove that he can be CB1 for this team. He sees what the roster has moved around him, and how every time that the roster has moved around him, it's carved out a role for him to fill. And so he sees that, and he wants to go out there and prove that. And so I'm really, really curious to see if he looks, how he looks this week, because I think he's going to be on a mission this week. Curious to see if he's going to be able to prove it.
Yeah, I mean,
or not prove it. Sorry, not prove it, but make good on that mission. I mean,
well, and what I was going to say, to piggyback off that, assuming Kool-Aid does start on the outside opposite, you're presumably looking at the starting tandem next year.
That's right.
I mean, Paulson Adebo is a free agent. No guarantees that he comes back, although we do believe that maybe he can get him on a pretty team-friendly deal and a one-year deal, if you will, and such. And I saw some videos. He's starting his rehab process, which is excellent to see that. And so, again, you're kind of getting a glimpse, and I like the younger guys, but with the younger guys, sometimes you do get those risks of, like, it's a risk reward type of thing where, he might make some really good plays. Then you see the penalties, which, again, I didn't agree with a lot of the ones that he was flagged for last week, but they're going to call those the way they see them most times. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that's just,
right. Yeah, true.
I'm excited to see Alontae. I think he's got a lot to prove in this game. And of course, playing against Jameis, can he can he stick with Jameis? Does he get sucked in by what Jameis does, his eyes or anything like that, his movement? It's a big game for Alante, and it's only going to get bigger from here because after the bye week, you got Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp come in with Matthew Stafford, and so that's going to pose an even bigger problem in some aspects for them. And last year they played him too, and that was actually the game he got benched, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So, but not like we're getting ahead of ourselves. But I'm saying it is an opportunity for Alante to say, okay, let's wipe the bad taste out of my mouth from last week. Let's stack a really good game here, and then show everybody why I can absolutely be CB1.
Yeah, he's got a couple of redemption opportunities coming up here. I didn't even think about the Rams angle, but you're right. Like, he's going to be the number one guy against the Rams a year after the situation where he got benched in LA. And so, yeah, this is a big time redemption arc right now for Alante Taylor. Another guy that I'm curious about is Cam. I'm just curious to see how much they utilize him, what he gets the opportunity to do, what he's able to make good on. I think it's pretty big that Jedrick Wills ended up getting downgraded for the Browns. So that impacts that offensive line that has been struggling to get healthy and everything. And so, like, that could open up some opportunities for the Saints in their edge rushers and all that, which is where the majority of their pressure has come from this season, most reliably at least. And so I'm curious to see, like, that split between Cam, Carl Granderson, and Chase Young, opportunities to obviously get all three of them out on the field together as well, of course. But really curious to see what that split looks like. And if the Saints can, again, for a second week in a row, give Cleveland something that Cleveland hasn't really seen on tape yet and been able to prepare for, with the new defensive coordinator throwing in some new wrinkles and then a new head coach asking for things to be a little bit different over on the offensive side too.
Yeah. And don't forget Joe Woods against his former team. That's probably the bigger.
He said it's not a revenge game. He said it's not a revenge game.
But don't make no mistake about it. The players are going to want to win for Joe Woods.
You're dang right.
They're going to want to win.
Yeah.
I guarantee you they win and they do something defensively, he gets a game ball. I just don't even think it's any other question. But again, getting ahead of ourselves there. But no, I'm with you. I think the split worked pretty well last week. And again, Cam playing from 10 snaps to 40 plus snaps is a big jump, but he shows he's got some juice left in the tank. And that's the thing is we knew he had juice left in the tank. You just need to put him in the position that's going to make him succeed the most at this point. Like, you can still get a lot out of a player regardless of how old he is in a lot of ways, but you just got to use him the right way. And, they put him inside. He lost a lot of weight, did all this stuff. I mean, put him one-on-one with the guy, and he's got the pass rush moves as a veteran to still make success. And the fact that he just got his first sack of the season last Sunday against Atlanta is asinine. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just crazy. But I'm with you. There's a lot of these defensive players that you just got to hone in on this game. And again, everybody's playing and being evaluated for next season too. And this is a lot that has to be taken into account. Like, we've talked about the need potentially for a pass rusher in the draft. Like, they're just going to have to look at it because Cam's another year older. They can't bring him out on that contract, can't bring him back. Chase Young's a free agent. Peyton Turner's a free agent. You haven't got anything from Isaiah Foskey. You still have Carl Granderson in the mix, but that's a need. You have to figure out what's going to happen with the interior. You got to figure out your offensive line, which again, I feel a lot better about the offensive line. Skill position seems like a pretty good place to go right now too. And so there's a lot of things that are on the table that, you've got all these games left to go, that there's a lot to figure out still.
Yeah. And look, the other thing to consider too, especially when it comes to the draft and free agency actually, is how do the prototypes change? How do the archetypes change? Because if you don't have Dennis Allen in the building anymore, you're still married to the big physical 6'6" plus 6'5" plus edge rushers. Or do you have a head coach that comes in and brings in a new defensive coordinator who views things very differently and likes the Abdul Carters out of Penn State, 6'3", 250-pound speed rushers off the edge? Because the Saints don't have pass rushers in that way; they have edge defenders, and that's the way that they play right now. But how does that change? And so I'm really interested to see. Like, there's some really good defensive end talent in this upcoming draft class. That's not like top 5 pick good, but that's like 10-year plus edge rusher, pass rusher good. in the NFL kind of talent that you're going to find in the first, second, third rounds. Like Princely Uman-Mielen out of Ole Miss is like one of my favorites to watch. Bigger guy, stockier guy, but has a lot of speed element to his game. But does he fit what the new prototype is going to be? Like everything's going to be different. I don't think it's going to be fun because I don't think we're going to be able to talk about the draft, depending upon what decisions are made at head coach and the rest of the coaching staff. I don't think we're going to be able to talk about the draft the same way we've talked about it in the past 15, 16 years. Like we're going to have to change a lot of the prototypes all of a sudden, potentially.
That's exciting. I look forward to it. Like I know we launched our show at about that time. What was it about? January, February, something like that.
Yeah.
Right? And so it was, it'd be fun because that was a fun talk, but we kind of knew the inside thoughts of this team, right? Like you talked to Jeff Ireland at the Senior Bowl, you know what he's looking for. You know what he kind of likes here. And same thing when you talk to Mickey and then when it was DA, you know, the type of way they build within the trenches or build from the trenches within and all that other stuff. Like that's the philosophy. New coach, new regime, potentially. Maybe that changes, but we're a ways away from that, but it is going to beg the question of, do they get away from some of these prototypes, archetypes, all this other stuff? And I think when you miss the playoffs potentially for a 4th straight year, I think everything should be on the table. So
100%.
It's just kind of how it goes. And so, but going back to this game, Ross, who's going to win this one, and what's your final score prediction?
Yeah, I'm gonna roll with New Orleans. I think the Rizz is still strong with this team, and so I'm looking forward to seeing how they're going to be able to continue to compound that. Darren Rizzi said he wants to get the Superdome back to the way that it used to be, and getting a win this weekend is pivotal in that process. And so I'll take the Saints to win this one. I'll go 23-21, keep it nice and close. I think you're right. It's a race to 20 with some additional like late field goal exchanges or something like that that end up kind of factoring in. And I think that's where this one goes. So yeah, I'll go with that.
Yeah. Look, if they win this game, I think they might have risen.
Oh, nice.
That's when I threw out. That's when I threw out. Nice. It was so corny. I was like, all right, I'll see myself out.
give him a 3-day bye week and then have them come back instead of a full bye week.
There you go. But look, I'm with you. I got to pick New Orleans. I still like playing at home, just building off the energy. I don't think this is just a 1-week fluke. I think they are the better team here in a lot of areas. I think it's still a little bit low scoring. 26-20 is what I'll take New Orleans this week. I think that they're going to do what they need to do offensively, and they're going to put a lot of this on the defense, and the defense is going to be ready to actually answer the challenge and be able to deliver a good bit. I think they can disrupt Jameis enough and plenty to be able to help set their offense up on some shorter fields and stuff. And so I just think that, again, this is another opportunity for the Saints. They know what's at stake. They know what's to play for. There's still a hell of a lot of talent on this roster, and they're going to go out and prove it. I just feel like, and when they go meet the Rams and other better teams in some aspects, quote unquote, then, it'll be really showing what they're made of, if you will. But they beat a better team last week to start the Rizzi era. So I was impressed by that because, they don't do that typically because Dallas was a fluke, all that other stuff. But we'll see. And we'll be obviously there to bring everything post game. So
I'm gonna say one thing to what you just said about Dallas being a fluke. Dallas was not a fluke. Dallas is just terrible. The Cowboys are awful. Let's call it what it is. Woo! They're a terrible football team. I'm glad that Jerry decided to drop the curtains for the fight last night because the sun might have gotten in Jake Paul's eyes. But no, that game wasn't a fluke. The Cowboys are just a terrible football team.
Yeah, no longer.
They did exactly what they should have done in that game.
Yeah, America's dream, I guess, more like it.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, well, no, it's true. But you look at those 2 wins at the start of the season. Look who they played, and look at where everybody's at now.
100%.
Put 2 and 2 together, right? So, Ross, as always, what you got coming up on Locked On and LouisianaSports.net as we get closer to game time?
Yeah, next thing up over on Locked On is going to be post-game coverage and everything. So we'll be live over there before we're live over here and all that good stuff. And so that'll be there. And then all throughout next week, my focus is on introducing Saints fans to head coaching candidates. So my goal is over the course of 5 shows to introduce you to 3 head coaching candidates each day with the help of some of my friends from around Locked On. who know those people the best. So it's not just me waxing philosophic about what I think they're doing. Let's get the people that actually like cover these guys to come in and do that. So 15 coaches, 5 shows. That's the goal. We'll probably start that like Wednesday and then go like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then into like Monday, Tuesday of next week with the bye week and stuff like that. No game to preview, so we can look ahead a little bit. So that'll be a lot of fun. I'll compile all that information into an article as well over at LouisianaSports.net. And then I also just published my column on Saturday afternoon around the Saints and the their clear decision to go out there and compete for the rest of the year. They're playing to win. They're not playing for draft position, and why that was the right choice. So if you want to read that, you can find it over at LouisianaSports.net. What you got coming up over at Saints News Network?
Yeah, look, before I say that, this team is too proud, too much pride to just lay over and just die. Like, you know, they're going to play for each other. Like, they're not going to tank. I don't care who tells them what. They're not going to tank. That's not how this team's constructed. But look, Saints News, I mean, the games tomorrow, all the game coverage. You got game coverage out the ears. Between me, Bob, and Kyle, we'll have you covered for the game, of course. And so stay tuned to all that stuff. And then, you know, we've got some other pipelines working. I mean, we've talked plenty. It's more of a, you know, I looked at the other week of where the future of this team can go. I think it's more looking at some of that. And, you know, again, salary cap's going to be the big thing. The talk about what happens with Derek Carr, that's going to be a big topic of discussion. Should they keep him? Does the new coach want to keep him? I mean, there's all sorts of questions that we have that are piling up for it. Is Mickey Loomis going to be the GM that heads this up this next season? I mean, there's all these things and these angles, and a lot of that will be coming out on Saints News Network, especially on the bye week. So make sure you stay tuned to that. And obviously make sure that you like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. Again, thank you guys so much for all your support in the community. You've been amazing. We just continue to keep up ramping here, and you know, we'll just never know. I looked at, I think, Ross, we're almost up to episode 75. I can't believe that.
Wild.
But
that's
wild.
Wild.
It's crazy. Been doing this for a little bit, and so you know, again, we're not just a fling. We're here to stay, guys. And so, you know, you can have confidence in that. And if there's anything you want to see differently, just hit us up. And as Ross always says, you know, come meet us. And we met somebody at the Superdome last weekend. Shout out to him.
Shout out to Michael.
Yeah, shout out to him. It was awesome meeting him. We got the time and stuff. And so again, we're not above anybody. You know what I'm saying? We're like what you see here and what we met in our fans when we did our live show. Like you can tell them, you know, they can tell you too. Like not above anybody. So anyways, enough of my constant rambling and all that fun stuff. Guys, y'all have a great time. Hope to see you at the game on Sunday, and we will be back to talk about post game. Hopefully we're talking about a win, but you know, we'll be here regardless. Y'all have a good one. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Love you.